Hi everyone, and welcome back to Uncomfortable Conversations. Most of us spend a large part of our careers focused on how to earn a seat at the table. We work hard, we build expertise, we chase opportunities, we build our networks, and we really try to prove ourselves. And eventually, if we're fortunate, someone pulls us out of that chair and invites us into the room that we want to be in. But what nobody really talks about is what happens next. Because earning a seat at the table is one thing, having your voice heard is one thing, but keeping it is something else entirely. And influence has to be earned repeatedly, and respect is gained over time. Credibility has to be built over and over again, and confidence has to survive setbacks, criticisms, self-doubt, and the inevitable moments when things just don't go to plan. But my guest today is someone who has taught me a great deal about that. So when I joined Logicalis, I arrived during a period of quite significant change. The people who had recruited me were moving on within the business. The environment was changing. It was changing at pace. So it was quite a challenging situation to go into. And I was trying to figure out how to navigate that while still making an impact in my role and all the things that go around being new when you join into a company. But throughout that entire period, my guest today, Cat, is one of those people who just consistently to me showed up every day, even in different time zones. She offered advice when I really needed guidance. She offered me that encouragement when I needed it. She built up my confidence, and she gave me the perspective where I was struggling to maybe find my footing. But what struck me then and what stayed with me ever since is that Cat never really seemed to compromise who she was in order to achieve that and to be effective. She never compromised her values. She was respected without being intimidating within the business. People had a natural mutual understanding and respect of what she did, her opinion, and the value that she brought. And that is influential without being necessarily political. It was influential for the needs of others. And she had that strength without needing to be the loudest voice in the room. She was quietly confident, authoritative, and authentic. And since then, since I've moved on, I've watched as Kat has continued to lead that business at the highest levels of that organisation, earning trust from executive teams, from colleagues, from global leadership groups in an industry that isn't always known for making that easy. So today we're going to explore what it really takes around building credibility, maintaining that influence and staying true to yourself, and how you keep showing up authentically when leadership gets harder and when change happens. So Kat, I'm absolutely absolutely delighted to welcome you today. So Cat Walkerden what is your current role, Kat, at Logicalis?
I'm the VP of Global Marketing for Logicalis, and thank you for that incredible introduction. I had no idea that you're going to say such nice things, and it's a lovely introduction to what's a really important topic in leadership, I think, is maintaining credibility and, keeping that seat at the table and trying to lead with integrity, which we try to do every day. It's not always easy.
Yeah, and that's a really important word as well, and it's a really point to come back to, because not a lot of people, I don't find, tend to have that focus or really think about or talk about integrity enough. We talk around a lot of, trust and created trusted environments for people, and we talk a lot about values, but actually it fundamentally comes back to operating with that level of integrity and transparency and openness and awareness of self that truly makes a good leader stand out. And that's what builds the trusted environments within an organization, because you have those leaders who are, they feel that there is that integrity to what they do, and they're not prepared to go beyond that. It's almost that line in the sand moment of that I'm not prepared to compromise on who I am, and I'm going to operate within that, the framework of what I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, I think it all stems from work ethic. So I, born to working class Irish Catholic parents, immigrants, I've kind of grown up with a very strong work ethic, which has been handed down from them. So I have them to thank for that. And I think whatever level I've been at within an organization, whether it's an individual contributor, a manager, or now kind of a leader of a global function, the work for me comes first before any notion of power or that side of things. It's really about the responsibility for the whatever the job to be done is kind of done to the highest possible standard that it can be completed to, or if it's an ongoing program or project, and that my responsibilities are met to the highest standard, whether that's kind of managing a global team, whether it's managing individual programs. And so I kind of see that integrity around work ethic as central to just who I am as a person. And then the leadership part comes second. And then it comes to, how do I want to treat people and make people feel in the environment that I can create with this privileged position of being a leader. And those things to me are probably the most important parts of leadership and the job that I do versus, thinking like, how am I going to establish credibility today? How am I going to establish trust today? It's doing the work, and it's looking after the people in my care to the highest possible standard that I can. And I think it's really important for me because growing up through the IT industry, I've been in tech for 25 plus years. I've been in some really toxic environments, some really wonderful environments. And the fact that as a leader, you get to decide how somebody, spends their working day, but also the ripple effect to how their families experience them in the evening, how, present they are on the weekends, but whether they're stressed about work or, deadlines or everything that they've got coming up or not. So I think the role of a leader is so important, but not necessarily for the reasons of power and the rest of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard a really interesting quote this week that really struck me. Somebody that I know had posted something on LinkedIn about she was doing multiple interviews, and she said her one standout candidate from the range of interviews, because if you were when you're interviewing with any professional set within marketing, for example, the skill set tends to be the same, so you're looking for that sort of added piece that supplements it. And she said this candidate had really stood out to her because she talked about you have to bring the energy, you have to bring the joy. And I immediately got it. And I thought that is so true, because whether you're a manager, whether you're the senior leadership team, whether you're the board, whatever that level is, the minute you walk into a room where you have some kind of influence over the people in that room and some kind of role of shaping the output of that, whatever's happening in that room, you have to bring the energy, you have to bring the joy, because people will look at you as the mirror of how they are going to then reflect that. And if you're that leader or you're that person that shows up in that moment of, it's all doom and gloom and, everything's going wrong, that is the tone you're going to set for that 100%. Meeting, for the day, for whatever it is. And I just thought that is so absolutely true. And it's tough because you're not always happy and you can't always bring the joy. But I think we almost just have to pause as leaders, don't we? And I kind of have that awareness and understanding of what is the impact that I'm going to have on the people I'm about to sit in front of? How can I make sure that this is the best experience for them? And sometimes that is almost a case of, well, I've got to take that board hat off now because that's the board, and okay, that was challenging over there, but I've got to bring the energy and enthusiasm and joy now into this room because I want my team to actually continue to be creative and to love what they're doing and to get the best output for them.
100%. And it's such a critical point and something that I spend a lot of time through my leadership journey have had to spend a lot of time managing, like I'm naturally an energetic, positive, upbeat person, but there are times where you've had an argument with your child, or you've just got through getting someone out the door, on the school run, or it could just be, a million different priorities just dragging you down. You haven't slept well. And you have to take a breath, recalibrate, recenter before you go into the next thing, because you cannot afford to take that energy with you. And there's in the early days of being a senior leader, I did not know how to keep the energy levels up that I needed for myself. It was give, output, and give, versus going, no, you actually need to be able to put your own kind of mask on first, as they say. And so, I've had to bring into practice a lot of tools like meditation, journaling, just sitting quietly for a moment of reflection before starting another meeting. Because the programs and things that we're working on, and people's energy levels, it is infectious. So you have to go in, high energy, high belief in what you're doing, and how you address the room, the tone, seeing a smile on your face, a little bit of, your shoulders are down, versus in flight or fight mode, which, sometimes we can get into when there's so many different priorities to focus on. So I've had to learn how to do that, and not give everything to work. Realizing that actually by not giving everything to work, I'm actually helping myself be a better leader for the people that need me, as opposed to burning out by giving 150% and then, getting sick, or just losing energy, losing the will to live. Really important.
And I think that, and that's learned behaviors, right? That doesn't come. You have to, that's a very disciplined mindset and approach that you really need to focus in on that. You've got to be able to acknowledge that, see where it's not happening, and then make that conscious step and effort to change it. But I think as well, to what you were saying of the ripple effect across the team, it's actually that then creates that positive ripple effect across the team, because they are then seeing, Cat, well, my leader, I know, switches off at X time. Cat doesn't send me emails at 3 o'clock in the morning, or whatever it might be. You're bringing in those positive behaviors, and those behaviors are then reflected, and that's then that environment you create for people to be able to thrive in, because your team will naturally mirror your behaviors. That's how we learn. We look up and we say, okay, well, if that's what people are doing, then that's what I need to do. So I think that's really, really important point of just having that awareness and that acknowledgement. And actually the fact that that's okay, that's healthy, that's a healthy work-life balance, and actually you need to find that to be able to thrive and to keep showing up every day.
100%. And I think the other thing is, feeling good, looking after yourself, but also investing in your education, taking time to read what's going on in the market. It's not just about output, it's about, yourself as a complete product, which is what you see, what you learn, how you're influenced by other peers and mentors, etc. as well. It's all really important to understanding. And then, I think getting some 360 feedback every now and again is really helpful as well, because your team don't always feel that they can say to you, oh, hey, Kat, I didn't feel you handled that so well today. And, sometimes your boss may not have time. So it's really good to just occasionally get that 360 feedback. I did that recently, and it was really interesting, some of the findings, both the positive and the not so positive, and I've been able to kind of put into action. So I think, I'd highly recommend that as an exercise as well. And just having, an open, say open door, but a lot of us kind of work from home these days, but an open ear policy. Like I'm really open to hearing feedback, not just about myself personally as a leader, but also are we working on the right things? You know, some of the team might be closer to the front line on some projects and taking their direction of what's going to work and what's not going to work. Exactly. And we're all here we all need to learn. We're all going to go through a massive relearning, reskilling with the era of AI that's upon us. I don't know exactly what leadership's going to look like in the next couple of years, but I feel like I need to understand, you know, the tools and things that my team are working on and that I need to be kind of involved in as well. So I kind of welcome the opportunity to learn.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And one of the, I think following on from that, I mean, to me, certainly sort of outside looking in and having had the pleasure of working with you for, you know, a very brief period of time. But one of the things that I've always sort of noticed, one of the things that I've always admired about you is that you remain influential and while staying true to who you are. You're always, to me, you turn up authentically every single time.
Thank you.
Which brings, you know, it to me, it's something that I value in, you know, sort of role models and mentors and leaders that I see around me, because and again, it comes back to mirroring those behaviors, and, you know, you see people that you aspire to be and you look up to, and you look at the way that they sort of show up and maintain that. So have there been moments within your, you know, your sort of professional career and maybe recently, where staying true to your values and to that integrity and to who you are maybe came at a bit of a professional cost? So is there, what is that balancing act between conviction, collaboration, but fundamentally knowing when to challenge and when to actually hold your line?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. So I think throughout my career, I've been in environments where I haven't been able to be myself, or myself hasn't been, you know, fully welcomed within the organization. And so 25 years in, I know the difference now in environments where I'm going to thrive and where I'm kind of barely surviving, and kind of, you know, masking how I'm feeling on a day-to-day basis, and things like that. So I think for me, having the right environment and, you know, and boss is really important, and having a values aligned person that you're reporting into is really important. And I'm really lucky that I have that in Logicalis. Yeah. So one project in particular where I think the values and kind of holding the line comes to mind is the global website project, that one of the biggest projects I've ever worked on, probably in my career. I'd been in the role probably 12 months, the global VP role, and we had to re-architect, rebrand, and essentially set up a completely new domain structure for all of our websites. So it was burning the current websites down to the ground and starting from scratch, basically, and trying to get all of every region. You know, Logicalis is active in 30 territories around the world, to go onto the same domain, the same structure, the same architecture, and go live all on the same day. And this was an 18-month project leading up to a go live. And anybody who works at Logicalis who's involved in that project's probably got PTSD kicking off right about now as I'm talking. I know I do. But it was about 6 weeks to go live. And then I started getting a lot of regions saying to me, we're not ready, we can't go live, and escalations to, you know, regional CEOs on me to say, we need to stop this, we need to push the time frame back. And I knew, you know, if we don't go live on this day all together, it's never going to happen. Like we've got like 70% of the regions ready to go, almost ready to go to the finish line, and a few we need to get there. So I said, on this call, kind of was a come to Jesus moment with one of the senior leaders and the marketing team. And I said, the question is not, do we push back? The question is, what resources do you need to get there? So I'm happy to have that conversation, but I'm not happy 18 months into a project to have the conversation of, do we push back? Because as soon as you let the ones that are already done the prep off the hook, and that's 70%, the whole thing's going to turn into a shambles. So we, by hook or by crook, I personally, assigned resources and myself to help this particular region to get where they needed to be in the kind of box seat for go live on the right day. And I think that to me is exemplary of how I would lead in general. It's like, I'm with you, I will help you, but if we've set a deadline, we're sticking to it, and we're not pushing it out. We've had 18 months. We're going for it. And so we did it, and it was painful. And, it took a while post go live to get everything perfect. But that was an interesting moment, because it was so stressful. People really were stressed, and I didn't like to see that. But I had a job to complete. And when you're dealing with 30 different countries, you can't accommodate everybody. It's like, no, we set a date, we're going for it. So
and it's taking those reflection moments as well sometimes that are so important as part of that process, because if you'd have immediately just gone on to the next thing, that's where the fatigue then comes in, and the sort of battle fatigue, and people of that, they're almost on that downward trend. But then you sort of take that moment to stop and look back and say, hey guys, look what we did, and the small touches of being able to acknowledge that effort. Again, it's the makeup of a good leader, isn't it? It's what sort of, the fact that not everybody thinks about those sort of things, but you need to almost put yourself in the mind of your team and the people that are around you, and how can you keep them motivated. And
I think one of the things that you wanted to touch on is, what does that look like behind the scenes? And I remember, I didn't sleep very well for probably about 3 months at the time. And I would get up early. Well, I would just wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, just there was so much to do. And I would go do a bit of work, and then go for a walk to clear my head and kind of mull over some of these, these objections that I was getting, like, is this well-founded? Is this something that do we need to push the date back? Are there other ways that we can kind of think about doing this? And so that really helped me just mull over some of the things, just getting out in the project, because I was tense. You know what it's like when you're dealing with a big project and everyone's kind of on you saying, we need to push it back, we need to do this, I'm not ready, this is too stressful, we only have one person here, and it was a lot. So having that just reflection time. But the other thing about it is sometimes, and I coined, well, my coach helped me at the time, helped me coin this phrase, which is, sometimes it's the season of work, and you just have to put your head down and get on with it. So there is no meditation, journaling, whatever, that's going to fix this and make you feel great every day when you're going through like a big project. Sometimes it's the season of work, and that actually really helped me to just think about it like that. It's the season, I'm head down, it's very stressful, but we're going to get to the other side.
Yes, absolutely. I think I remember you saying that to me once, actually, when I was there. So you've worked through huge changes in technology, within businesses, within leadership expectations. You've kind of been there at the heart of a lot of that. How do you continue evolving your learning, your understanding, the massively changing technology and channel landscape that we're in? How do you continue evolving without losing yourself in the process? Because it can be quite, I imagine it's quite difficult to, you've always got to have your sort of eye on the future. You're operating almost in you've got the today, you've got the
Yeah.
tomorrow, and you've got the future, sort of the
Mm,
three hats you need to wear. How do you balance your time and make sure
mm.
you're spending your time in those right areas and places?
Yeah, good question. I would say I'm very mission driven as a
Hmm.
leader. So if I've got something that we're as an organization aiming for, I guess even step back from that, my motivation and what kind of gets me moving is how can I best serve the organization that I'm kind of working for?
Hmm.
What are the things that we need to be focusing on? So that's kind of number one. Um, and being mission driven, I find that incredibly motivating. So whether we're focusing on, at my level, repivoting the Logicalis brand to become an MSP, not just the brand, but our go-to-market, that was part of the web project as well, to
Hmm.
really re-gear our focus towards being a managed service provider versus just a pure reseller. Um, then the other part is reading a lot. So I read a lot of books, I read a lot of marketing materials, but also the IT news,
Hmm.
and look at what our competitors are doing, look at what the market's doing, analyst information as well. So I do spend a lot of time on LinkedIn kind of reading that stuff. And I genuinely find it interesting. Like, I'm not a technical person, but
Hmm.
I've been in tech for 25 years. So I am interested in how these things just ebb and flow and
Yeah.
shift, from, like, when I first started in tech, it was all about e-commerce was coming in,
Hmm.
and e-learning, and everything had E in front of it. And when I first did my marketing qualifications, my Chartered Institute of Marketing qualifications, everything was about essentially like paper
Hmm.
marketing effort. So
Yeah.
so I've had to keep on top of what's evolving and what's changing in the
Hmm.
industry as well. But I think being a curious person, and and that's probably why I love the industry so much, because it forces you to change. Like, if
Hmm.
you're not willing to stay, keeping yourself educated and looking at what's going on around you, it's really not the industry probably for
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
And again, I think it's part of particularly our role in marketing is to
Mm,
have that awareness and understanding of the tools and technology and the things and the changes that can shape what we do. I mean, you'll be the same as me coming in. When I first started in my career, there was no social media. We had no,
no.
we didn't even really use websites all of that much.
Yeah.
It was very much, your marketing toolbox. To me, as a marketer, your marketing toolbox evolves and grows
Mm,
as the world changes, and all of these things are tools within your toolbox, and you need
hmm.
to decide which one of those tools is most appropriate for the job that you're going to do, and how
Yeah.
you're going to get the best out of that. How are you balancing, just out of interest, because I have so many conversations, and the one
Mm,
question within all of my marketing peer groups that everybody keeps coming back to is, but how are people actually using it now that it's making a difference?
mm.
Because everybody's, oh yeah, we use AI for everything. But are you? But
Yes.
how is it actually making a difference? Is
Yeah.
there one particular use case around AI use within your marketing environment at Logicalis
Yeah.
that is actually really adding value and is something that you'd sort of champion as a, if you went away and tried one thing, try this.
Yeah, I have, mixed feelings about AI for content. I
Mm,
love the fact that we can, repurpose content in lots of different ways, but I'm very passionate about the written word. I
mhm.
love to read good content, good copy, well thought out
Yeah.
headlines that someone's really kind of thought about. So for me, and somebody said it on LinkedIn the other day, it just feels like we're trudging through a sea of sameness,
Hmm.
and I would hate for that to happen,
Mm,
uniformly, because anything that you can commoditize and churn out quickly and cheaply,
hmm.
it devalues,
Yeah.
you know, like, so why would readers bother to read just this mass-produced content?
Yeah.
And maybe it will kind of fool us and be great. That said, I think, you know, we produce at Logicalis a global CIO report. For the first time this year, we've been able to and it's kind of rows and rows of data from 1,000 CIOs across 30 countries. And for the first time, we've been able to really interrogate. So, you know, our agency produced the CIO report, interrogate, well, what are some of the, you know, interesting trends that come out here? How could we put a sector lens to some of these? And we've, you know, been able to produce additional market brief content pieces for the financial service industry, the oil and gas industry. So from that perspective, it's fantastic. I'm also using Copilot a lot to just organize my day, my one-on-ones. It just helps me, because I transcribe. I don't record every meeting, but I transcribe pretty much most of my meetings now, if as long as the people there don't mind. And then just helping me with follow-ups for one-on-ones, for my meeting with my boss, for you know, creating agenda and actually showing that you followed up on some of those items. I think, you know, going back to the whole theme of this, it's always been very important to me to do what you say you're going to do. And AI and, you know, tools like Copilot really just help to keep you on track. Like, oh yeah, I did actually say I did say I would do that. So capturing all of that, because you might scribble down some shorthand notes in the past, but no, it's got everything, like what did I commit to my boss in the last one-on-one or the last, you know, discussion that we had, and then being able to follow up on those things as well. So I'd say between those two, repurposing content. The other thing for me is interviewing technical experts and then interrogating that. So just having them talk and then interrogating that and go, can you put this in plain English for me? Can you put this, could you elevate this messaging for a CIO level? Like, it's very much at the technical level, but what would the equivalent be for a C level or board level kind of message? So all of those things I think are great. But like you, I'm of the school that just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I, like everything that I'm working on, I want to stay close to the work and the ideas, not just keep my brain in a box and just hit the AI button every day, you know. Yeah, funny story about that. So a couple of companies ago, when marketing automation was kind of hitting the mainstream, we were like, yeah, we need to do marketing automation. So we set up this very complex nurture flow for you know, a post-event follow-up, and like, oh, this is going to be great. We won't need to touch this now. No matter how many people that, you know, there's going to be like 1,000 plus people at the event. So then, you know, Monday came and we're like, right, let's check the nurture to see how it's all going. And 3 people had gone through it and 1 got to the end. So at that stage, we'd put more time into setting up the nurture than it would have been to handcraft 3 beautiful emails to the people. And so again, to your point, just because you can doesn't mean you should or need to, you know.
Exactly. Brilliant, thank you, Kat. So just sort of, you know, thinking about looking back, so over everything that you've learned across, you know, your varied career and your different sort of roles, and you've been sat within a senior leadership team, you've been sat in an executive team, you sit on board levels, you know, you bring that wealth of experience. What is one thing that you think could help people as they're maybe in, you know, they're starting in a career where they're now in a position, they're going to be sat on a senior leadership team, they're going to be able to, you know, you've got to sit in that room, you've got to hold your own, nerves come, you know, you have those moments of imposter syndromes. What do you think CEOs and executive teams really want from marketing leaders in those rooms? What's some of the things that you've learned through trial and error of just get your message across, stick to those key points and land those messages?
Yeah, really good question. And I was actually just at an event last week where this topic was really widely discussed. So it's very top of mind. I think marketing needs to speak the language of the business. So instead of just talking about engagement or leads or MQLs or SQLs, it's about, revenue, pipeline, conversion, those types of things. And really understanding the return on investment, including the cost of the people in your in-house team, not just the cost of the campaign. Are you, as a marketing leader, generating a net positive result for the dollars invested, or actually is marketing a loss-making endeavor? And it's really important to have a hard look at that, and particularly adjust how you're talking when you're talking to CFO, CEO about the results, the results and the terminology that matters to the business. So if my CEO is focused on EBITDA, gross profit, then that's where I need to be focusing as well. I think the other thing is I've seen, marketing leaders thrive and not, depending on how willing they are to, I guess, absorb and look around and what's happening in the business in terms of agenda as well. Marketing can be very creative. We have, great ideas about how we want things to be. But if you're not in step with the other members of your leadership team, and, or if you're pursuing your own agenda over the needs of the organization, then I've seen that not go well. And, one of the things that's really important to me is that I'm working on the things that matter to the business. So whether it's, the most exciting marketing related topics or not, or whether it's, something that I know is going to help generate EBITDA or help our regions with new campaigns that generate revenue pipeline. It's about really understanding where the business is at. And if the business doesn't have an appetite for big spend or is in cost reduction mode, and then you're suggesting we need this big MarTech stack, we need to invest $1 million in this campaign. No matter how influential you are, you're going to be looked at like, what are you talking about? You know? Absolutely. So I think paying attention to what the business needs.
Find your groups of allies and meet with them regularly. And it doesn't have to be, a big formal structure, but just keep those touch points. Keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the business and make sure we're bringing that back in to what we're trying to do within marketing.
Absolutely. And one final thing I'd say, no matter what level you're at, is be easy to work with. It shouldn't need to be said. But if you're putting up barriers and making things difficult or not getting back to people, it's really off-putting, and people get frustrated and will kind of, word will get back to whoever that. So I think be easy to work with.
Absolutely. But also people will find a way to work around you. If you're the blocker, people will bypass you, and then suddenly you don't know what's happening in the business. And back to if you're sat in the room, back to the the leadership team, whatever it might be, the worst thing you want as a marketer or anyone in the business is all of this is going on and you're not aware of it and you haven't influenced it, because then it's almost you've lost your seat at the table. So if you want to retain that and you want to retain your credibility and your influence, you have to be trusted. You have to be the person that not rolls over and says yes to
Yeah,
everyone, but be in the
agreed.
moment, have the conversations, and make it easy for people to have sometimes healthy debate. And half the
Mm,
time, people will come to you with ideas because, hey, everybody in the business thinks that they can do marketing. So
always,
everybody's
yeah.
going to come to you with an idea, and you don't have to say yes to all of them, but
Mm,
acknowledge them and listen to them. So that's a
yeah,
really great idea. Thank you. Let me just play that into what we're currently doing, but go back
yeah.
to them and tell them. I come back to your seeking 360 feedback on a regular
Mm,
basis as a leader. I do that quite a lot. I will go out to people, particularly if I've done like a company all hands and I've stood up
mm,
and presented. I'll go to a few trusted people and say, give me some honest feedback. How do you think it
mm,
went? You were sat in the room. How did it land? What can I do differently next time? But I always follow up with people and go back off, right, you gave me these three improvement things over whatever
mm.
period of time it is. What do you think? Have you seen a difference? Have I
Yeah,
actually changed? Just so that it's not a, oh, well, Louise asked us
one
for
and
feedback,
done.
but what was the point? It's, oh,
Yeah,
she's actually asked us for a reason. She's
yeah,
interested in what we have to say.
100%.
Yeah, brilliant. All right. Amazing. Thank you, Kat. And that's been such a brilliant conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you. Is
Likewise.
there anything final that you want to add? Is there anything that you think we haven't covered that was top of mind that you want to leave people with?
No, there's nothing that's really top of mind, but I think, for anybody who's thinking about, who has leadership aspirations, and might be thinking, oh, I'm not the right personality type. Like I had that thought before I got into it. I thought I'm not kind of harsh enough. Like my idea of a leader was someone command and control
Mhm.
who essentially shouts at people to get, and I'm just like, I've never shouted at work in
Mm.
my life. So yeah, it really does take all kinds of people to be good leaders, depending on what function or team you're leading. So give it a go, and yeah, it's a very rewarding career if you go into it for the right reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Kat. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so
My
much for joining
pleasure.
me.
My pleasure. Thanks, Louise.